Okay, so we're recording. Okay, so again, just to try. So the Maimir is just a question. The original question of the Maimir is that so the hey means to cover, but that's not the pshat. The simple pshat. The simple pshat is with the same meaning with an aleph, which means an appointed time. Sound the shofar and then appointed time. So say so. So say right chatzilah was an aleph. So teretz is no. You want to write it. The Torah writes it with a hey. It's supposed to kill him. To say what's concealed, the aleph is concealed. Bakese, Tiku the Shofar, Bakese li'im chagenu, blow the shofar on the day of concealment, and in so doing, reveal it. Explained elsewhere in Chassidus, L'yom is Giloi, Chagenu is Sukkot, and it's fully in this gala. But then Hamshacha begins Rosh Hashanah. So the pasuk is being bagamas dafka by writing bakese behei, but meaning, as it were, kese with an aleph, which means appointed time, as Rashi brings, yoyim hakese yovei beisoi. The pasuk is saying that what's concealed is the aleph is concealed, and that's what this whole maimir is explaining. And that is as follows. So you identify that there's three dargas we're speaking about here: yochid, echad, and voed. Basically, Yochid is Yichudi Yullah, and in that there's many dargis, but Yichudi Yullah, Betachlis, and Vod is Yichudi Tata. The Kavoni is to be Mamshech, Yichudi Yullah, and Yichudi Tata both ways, Melamaila Lamata, and Melamata Lamaila. In order to do that, there has to be a Mamutza. And a Mamutza, by definition, has to have the properties of the Elyon and the Tachtim, and that's Echad. Echad is the Mamutza, that's Mamshech, the truth of Yichudi Yullah, in Yichud Tata. And that's why he explained the two shittas in the Gemara where the Shema Yisrael is one of the psukim of Malchias or not. We explained the two shittas and the final halacha and why it's the final pasuk. It's the final pasuk because it's the culmination of the whole avodah of Malchias, which is Echad, which is the isbonenus and the avodah of Echad that is fuses Yochid and Vod, Yichud Yillah and Yichud Tata. So this was all explained at length of the previous prokim and the previous year, when it was on a Thursday, no, Friday. This year on Friday, we gave a much more detailed summary of the whole Maimir. Now he's in the middle of being Masbir, now Aleph. The Aleph of Echad, which is the Memutza between Yochid, the absoluteness of Elikus, and in Movadoi, and Voed, which is Bitlayesh, Yichud Tata, the starting point is the self. That's a given. The self is in his battle. So he explained why Keser is not a Memutza, why Dafka Chachma Stima is a Memutza, and I gave a Hamashal Nefesh Adam of Chachma Stima. Why that's the memutza between the etzem and nefesh and seichel. So we can start just to get the flow, but to go to the bottom page 9. V'alzeh meire gam kein tmonas eis aleph. Bring your mask. I don't know what it is. Oh. You see it on page 9. If you're looking in the computer, you have a different. Good morning, I'm going to mute you. Excuse me.
Good morning.
I'm going to mute you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
You can tinker with your coffee when you do that. All right. Bottom of page 9. No, again, so it's the end, not the end. It's 2/3 down of Ace Hay if you're looking at the computer. Yes, what has it? So Aleph is the memutze, and that can be seen in the picture of the Aleph. Shobetzir base koitzin bekav beemtza. It is two strokes and a line that unites them in the middle. It explained earlier that a memutze has to have the properties of the elyon and the tach. Therefore, shekoitza elyon beir al shoresh hachacham stima. So the upper stroke indicates the source of chacham stima. And what is that? That's etzem nefesh kemat. Shetikmose benefesh u'koich seichel hayuli atzmi. Talking koich ha-seichel. The dargis we've identified in seichel here are so far, and it'll remain, is the seichel agluya, a manifested idea. The mind is entertaining, the rational mind is thinking. Seichel. That comes from the koich hamaskil. That's the faculty of the nefesh that can understand, that can conceive. And that's rooted in Chochma Stima, and that's rooted in next level Koich Seichel HaYuli Atzmi Shumushlo Minyan HaSeichel HaGamri. So the Yuli means pure potential, undifferentiated. It's actually not even a Hebrew word; it's a Greek word. So the Chochma Stima, which is also not a conscious expression of a particular idea of the actual expression of a thought, a seichel process. So Chochma Stima itself, it's hidden, concealed, but it's still a gather of Chochma. It's a process of emergence. It's rooted in the Koich Seichel Yuli Atzmi Shum Mushlam Minyan HaSeichel HaGamri. Looking at it, you're not going to find Seichel at all, though it produces it. It is so transcendent, relatively infinite, although we're not talking Etzem Nefesh Mamash. We're talking the Seichel HaYuli HaAtzmi of Seichel. It's a relative essence. We're not talking about Koich HaMaskil, a lower, more articulated level. These are very subtle. The Koich HaMaskil, which is the ability to conceive of ideas altogether. So what does it transcend? It transcends the Metzias HaSeichel, a particular idea. We're going deep on the Nefesh. But the not a Metzias of Seichel, a particular idea, but the Geder of Seichel does exist and can be identified in Koich HaMaskil. You look at it and you're seeing what? This is a intellectual. And intellectually, you can see Koich HaMaskil. Well, what's in the intellectual's mind? Nothing's expressed there yet. It's the potential. But you see an intellectual. That's Koich HaMaskil. What you don't see there is the Metzias HaSeichel. Here we're going deeper. But going deeper even in the Koich HaMaskil, going even deeper than the definition of an intellectual. This is completely divorced from, it's too definitive to say even intellectual. So what is it? Since the nefesh of a person contains all kinds of shleimus, all kinds of virtues. Now, when we say shleimus here, you mean shleimus to the nefesh adam. You don't mean shleimus in absolute sense like the Eibishter. Obviously not. It's not a human being. So it's a relative shleimus. What's a shleimus of a human being is a rational thinker, as well as midas and everything else. So it's all contained there. Yesh gam shleimus the seichel. So the shleimus of seichel is there as well. So it's geder. We're talking here about is geder nefesh adam. There is a definition here. It's nefesh adam, but it's divorced yet, way deeper from a particular articulation. It contains them all. But at that point, to identify, here we're saying seichel there. No, it's shleimus adam. Seichel will emerge from there, but it hasn't been expressed there yet. So the Koich HaMaskil comes from the Koich HaYuli. And what level of it is it? the lowest, most external level. It's a birthing process. As things emerge from the inarticulate to the articulate, from the relative infinite pshitus to hischalkos. The mind is identifying these stages of emergence from simplicity to complexity. Complexity as in the whole G'darim of Seichel that later emerged in Midas, etc. So he says here now that the Koyach HaMaskel emerges from the Koyach HaAchron, P'chinas Achroina of the Koyach HaSeichel HaYulio Atzmi. So it's all relative. It's purely infinite. There's no level Achroina. There's no Achroina infinite. So it's all relative. It's all relative to a hardcore idea. So within the Nefesh Adam, these are relevant, not relevant. Yes. Relevant levels of pshitus. So you're asking, so we have to know this. Because the Eibishter made us this way, because that's the way he chose to express himself. And the more we understand this, as we said on Friday, it's the point that Eibishter is saying, get to know me. At the same time, you'll know yourself because I made you in my image. It's the greatest intimacy, is the sharing of his knowing, his knowledge of each other at the deepest levels. Not knowing each other externally, but all of the layers and the nuance. Shezeo Inyan, so what we just identified now, which is what? Can you fill in the blank? What the last of which is identified? What are you talking about? Last level of Milo. Now we're going to say where in the Aleph it is, but what do you just say? We just identified the lowest level of the Koyach HaYulio Atzmi from which the Koyach HaMaskel is drawn. We just said that. That's the upper stroke of the Aleph. The upper stroke, which means it's the faintest representation possible. And the Kudah, the whole Aleph is in the Kudah. Within the Kudah itself, Aleph relative to the base is in the Kudah. But within the Aleph itself, identifying these three pratim, it's the memutza between the Elyon and Tachton. So the upper stroke is the B'chinas Achronev and the Kudah B'lvad, Koyach HaYulio Atzmi, which from there then becomes the source of the Koyach HaMaskel. As he continues to the Aleph in a minute, but first a Moshel. K'may b'Rav Talmud, again using the classic Moshel of Rav and Talmud. She'einu be'erech zeh lo zeh. I'm not talking about, again, a teacher is only a teacher because he's older and learned more. That's what teachers generally are. Very often the student is more advanced than the teacher, potentially. I'm not talking about that kind of Rav and Talmud. The Rav and Talmud is a be'etzem, that they're incomparable. Rebbe and Chosef. Sharav tzarich l'tzamtzim is called sichlo, and he wants to teach him. That's the whole kavanah. That's why he's there. So what does he have to do? He has to mitzamtzim is called sichlo. He cannot think about the idea in the way it is in his mind. That's a completely mitzamtzim it. Limtze ba'atzmi eis in the kudish berach Talmud. And then, remove, it's the process of tzimtzum. Remove the way he entertains the idea and find, that's a process of finding an akudah that the Talmud can relate to. So then comes v'chakachakav, and then he starts to teach. Actually, this is still in the mind of the Rav. He's going to bring it down. Shomer al kol l'sin amshoch, that's amshoch. Hakav is a line implying higher, lower points. So that is the middle of the Aleph. Then comes the lower stroke. If I'm not mistaken, the way actually the Alephs are written is that the top stroke points upwards and the bottom stroke points downwards. Yeah. So then the final koitz, the koyal p'chinas ala p'china. So what is this? This is the level shebekoyach hamaskil she'sherish l'seichel hagoli. Now we're finally getting to the koyach hamaskil, which is the source, the direct source for manifested ideas. That is explained to Aleph in a very sublime level, where all three levels are still removed from. So just we ended up with the koyach hamaskil, the source of the seichel hagoli. Then he says the same. The Aleph can be described in a lower model as well. The Matayeh, was that clear? Yeah, the clothes. I mean, it's a bit of geography. but we've got to get the geography straight. We can work on understanding it. In other words, there's the map. So here, then there is, then you start to learn about the destinations on the map. That's pretty much the best we can do. Sheikh will actually be there. Now it's Yediyas and Metzias, at least we'll learn about those. That's what learning and understanding Chassidus is, learning about these levels. Anyway, so now lower, Lamata Yoser, the same model of Aleph, because Aleph is relative. So now this Memutzik continues is required and continues on a lower level. China says Aleph Kel Chachma Gluya. So the whole Aleph goes on Chachma Gluya, on manifested Chachma. So what are the 3 points? So the upper stroke is the source of the Amshach. Shehu Malkim Yinikas Asaitis, as we said in the previous mashal there. That's the place from where the hair, which emerges after the skull, but the Yanika is from within. The skull is like Tzimtzum. So that's the place, it's all a mashal for the manifestation of the process of intellect, which is why hair grows on the head. The kav amshachas aside, and the kav is the actual amshacha. So the upper stroke is the source of the amshacha, and the kav is the amshacha. That's like the hair itself. The keitzatachten and the lower stroke is chachma gluya. That's already manifested chachma, and from there, we call asiri shabbat b'chesed malchus, and contained there already is the whole process in which chachma then engenders, which has been all the way down to malchus. The Abba Yosad Brata, Abba father Yosad founds Brata, the daughter, which is malchus. He's saying it's all one package. Once you start with Chachma, already inherent there is the whole process of Adarabba. The final level, Malchus, is already there in the vision of Chachma. Conclusion. So the Aleph starts with the word Echod. So what have we said here? We've said here that the inyan of the Aleph is the memutza between Elyon and Tachten, as we understood this in the Moshel of Nefesh Adam, and likewise L'mayla. So it's the memutza between Yochid and Echad Shem Aleph Nimshach Al Yedei Aches. We don't stop with the Aleph. Then it's got to come down all the way into Vishtalshos, into the Ches Kivishis Be'la Hala, as will be explained later. Now, where's the later? I think it's the next Maimer, Sukkos. And then the B'chinas HaDalet, then finally Dalet, which Dalet B'chlal goes, we all know, goes on Malchus. Dalet means what? Yudshvat Memorim. Means poor, recipient, receiver, that's Malchus. Dalet stands for Dibur, and Malchus is the union of Dibur. So, go for the Malchus, it's something Kasha Malchus, Atzilus. Amshacha is not Malchus as is in Atzilus. Because still Adain Hari, Hayichud B'chinas Yichud Yilo, Atzilus B'derech Klal, in the big picture is also Yichud Yilo, it's all relative. Yachakach, Nimshach L'B'chinas Void, so it has to go into Dalet, meaning Malchus, as Malchus is Nimshach where in Biyah. Hence the next pasuk, Bor, which we say, Bor, Hashem Kim Chosei Leilam Voed, as we explained to Yichud, Gam B'Biyah that Voed is the same by Yosef as Echad, Yichud L'Fei Asman, as we explain how that works. But the Dalet remains, except the Dalet was supposed to be first a large Dalet, now a small Dalet. It's not a big Dalet. Big Dalet means Malchus united still with Atzilus. That's the largeness of it, the Gilui of it. No, the Dalet of it is a regular small Dalet of Yishin Yonah, because it's talking about Malchus as it descends into Biyah. So that's the whole Kavanah. That the unity, the truth of Yochid should be grasped and understood and penetrate and suffuse through Biyah, and that's through these bonus and the Giluyim reflected in Echad. To be continued.